I had it rough coming into this world. 6 foster homes, 2 shelters, lived a year in a Methodist home, and finally adopted at the age of 9. I've tried to find my way through life and realized something bigger than me was guiding me and watching over me at the same time. Now is the time to take the right direction and move forward and keep listening to the voice. I am Dash Gordon. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dash Gordon. Episode 5 is finally here, and it's something that's very close to my heart. We're here today at the Sanctuary Foster Care Services here in Clear Lake, Texas. They are changing the game on how individuals, children, young children, older children are being fostered and adopted. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's your boy Dash Gordon. Hey man, today's topic is going to be tough. Why? Because I lived it. So we're here today with Amanda Boyd from the Sanctuary Foster Care Services. She's amazing. We've met before and she's kind of walked me through and told the story. So this is going to be a tough one, so you guys be ready. So Amanda, tell us a little bit about the Sanctuary.
Sure. So the Sanctuary Foster Care Services, it was actually founded by myself and others who have lived this journey, Dash. My husband and I, we've adopted 6 kiddos out of foster care, and we just didn't have the support that we needed at all. We'd been through 2 different other agencies, and you know, it's hard. Fostering is hard. It's hard on the kids,
Sure.
and you know that because you
Sure.
lived that.
I did.
But it's also very, very hard on the foster parents as well, because you're dealing with the behaviors of the kiddos. You're dealing with the system, government systems that are always hard to navigate, and then you know you're dealing with just the physical, everyday things, and,
Right.
and you're just exhausted a lot in trying to figure out exactly you know how to do this thing and how to do it right and how to love these kids the best that we can.
So, you know, you're right, I lived it. 6 foster homes, 2 shelters, was put into a Methodist home, finally adopted, you know, at the age of 9 years old, and unfortunately that wasn't a perfect scenario either.
Right.
You know, reunited with my real parents at the age of 17, and, you know, 6 months later they both died. And so I was kind of back on my own again.
Yeah.
But this is so near and dear to my heart. Kind of give me an idea, you know, I was in the state system, so what's the difference between the state system and what the Sanctuary does?
Okay, good question. So we do get all of our kiddos from the state system, from the state CPS system, but we're a private agency that has come in to actually look at the areas where the state system needs help.
Right.
Because you know there's only so much that they can do. They're overworked as well, and so we came in and we designed a program to be the safety net for those kiddos and those families to make sure that they get the help that they need that currently the state isn't able to provide.
You know, my experience, you know, I think a lot of times these kids, including myself, go to a foster home. And I think that the parents that are raising these foster kids, I don't know that they really know how to be parents. I mean, how do you prepare parents that are going to be accepting children from all ages that have emotional issues, you know, have backgrounds that have been kind of tough. They've been in situations where it hasn't been ideal for them. What do you do to prepare the families to take care of this child?
Well, the first thing we do, Dash, is we make sure that we manage their expectations, because a lot of parents, they come in and they're thinking, oh my goodness, these poor kiddos, they've been through so much, and all I need to do is provide them love and a stable home, and if I do those 2 things, man, we're gonna have the perfect family.
Right.
And that's just not accurate, Dash, not accurate at all.
Right.
Because it takes specialized type of parenting to be able to love on these kiddos, to be able to help them, because of the trauma that they've been through, their bodies are changed, their brain has changed, their central nervous system has been changed,
Wow.
Everything in their body has been changed to survive,
Sure.
Not to thrive and not to connect and not to have long-lasting relationships, but just to survive every moment.
So, do the children, once they go into these foster care homes. And I know my experience, I would always be given back to my parents. And I would even question that. I would say to my parents, why do you keep getting us back?
Yeah.
Do you know I had Sprite for the first time, or I had a pork chop. It was the most awesome thing ever. And going into a situation where it seemed like those parents really cared about me, and I didn't want to go back. Do some of these children go back to the original parents?
Yeah, absolutely. Always the goal of CPS is reunification. And so honestly, and sometimes we've seen situations where it is the best for the kiddos to go back and be reunified with their parents. Absolutely. You've got some really good biological parents out there that they just didn't have the support that they needed in order to take care of these kiddos the way that they needed to be. Many of them grew up in foster care themselves, Dash.
Sure.
And so when that happens, you just have that cyclic behavior that continues over and over again. And and they just need support, which is, we'll talk about that a little bit later about one of the programs, another program that we're, hoping to start, because currently right now, what the sanctuary does is we have our foster care program, and then we also, just this year, we launched an adoptive program.
Oh, wow.
So it's our post-adoption support program, because Dash, that trauma doesn't stop with a name change.
No, it doesn't.
It just doesn't. And so to think that parents no longer need support after kids are adopted, it's ludicrous.
Right.
And so we're stepping into that space as well to make sure that the parents receive the support that they need.
So, child goes into a home. Everything seems like it's going great. Mm-hmm. Child's adjusting, things are going well, they're happy to be there. Well, all of a sudden, the memories from the past start to come forward.
But which always happens, honestly.
It does.
As soon as their body starts to feel safe in a foster home,
right.
Because they come in to begin with and they're still in that survival mindset. But then when their body feels safe, that's when those memories start to surface.
They do. I look
when
back,
it comes up.
I look back at my life, and people years ago would say to me, well, when you went through the foster care system and you were in the home, did anybody ever molest you? And years ago, and I never really, until my life started to adjust and I started to kind of take acceptance for, you know what, I was dealt that hand, there was nothing I could do. I started to think about events that had happened in my life, and there was a time that actually did happen to me, and I don't blame anybody. It happened. I don't blame my parents. I would probably have a tendency to maybe blame the Methodist home that I was in, that maybe they didn't vet the parents right or anything like that. But I just know that I caused a lot of problems for my parents that, I went into their house. What do the parents do when the child just becomes overwhelming for them and they need a break? What do they do? Where do they go? Do they just give the kid back? I mean, what happens in the situation?
And I'm so glad that you talked about that, because that's going to go into the services that we provide and how we do things here to make sure that kids don't get hurt. Because what we've found is looking at referrals that come in from CPS, and what a referral is CPS sends us just basically a document on the child that tells us, about the child, like their race and their age and gender and all of that. But then it also tells us how many placements that child has been in.
Oh, wow.
Because the average foster child moves 7 times. 7 times. And that's typically in a 1.5-year time frame.
Correct.
And when that happens, every single time that they move, more trauma happens. Because what they learn through that experience is, no one wants me.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's tough.
I'm not good enough.
Right.
And there's something wrong with me, inherently wrong with me. And Dash, that's not okay.
It's not.
It's not okay to send that message to kids.
No, it's not.
It's not. And so what we do is, when we first start and we teach our pre-service training classes in the beginning, we don't do puppies and kittens and rainbows and sunshine. We tell these parents, this is going to be hard. It's going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done. And I don't know about you, Dash, but I'm a Christian.
Sure.
And so and this is a Christian organization, and so what we tell them is, we're going to ask you to go to the cross for these kids.
Wow.
That's what we're going to ask you to do. In the Bible, it doesn't say pick up your daisies and follow me.
When you tell that to the parents, what's the reaction?
Well, the reaction is, they're like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Am I prepared for this? And I'm like, that's a question you really need to ask yourself. Are you willing to do this? Because we're not in this business to hurt kids. We don't do this to hurt kids. We do this to help kids and to help heal kids. not to hurt them.
Right.
And so our pre-service training classes are all about that. We tell really hard stories about some of the issues they might face, some of the behavior problems that they might see.
How many parents back away immediately when this happens?
Believe it or not, you'd be surprised, not that many.
Really?
No.
Okay. I'd be scared.
I know. Well, and that's what we want to do. Honestly, we want them to know that if you're going to get into this, these are expectations for you. Now, the thing is that we're different than other agencies is that we're going to be in that ditch with them every single step of the way. In that hard, we're going to be right there.
So you're coaching
We're going to support them the whole time. Yeah, the whole time we're coaching and just trying to prepare them for what they're going to be facing and what they're going to get into. And then when they get into it, we're there. We're right there with regular support. So one of the things that we do, Dash, is we provide counseling services, not just for the foster child, but for the entire foster family. Because when you become a foster parent, even though you've had trauma likely in your past, you haven't had anybody squeezing that.
Right.
You know, and so when you put a kiddo that has trauma into your home, all of a sudden you're getting pressure and you're getting squeezed. And so we have individual therapy that they can go work on their trauma. We also have marriage therapy, where as a couple they can go work, because often what we see that each parent, that they have different ways that they parent, they have different trauma histories, all those kinds of things, and it causes issues in marriage. And if there's a crack in that marriage, it becomes a chasm, it becomes the Grand Canyon if they don't work through it. And so we provide that marriage therapy as well. We also provide therapy for any adopted child that's already been in the home or any biological child that's struggling with the adjustment of the kiddos. And so that's just one of the therapy options that we offer. We also do in-home support, which means that when you have a family that's really struggling, we have clinicians that go into the home, Dash, and they help with those families in the home with specific scenarios.
So who pays for all of this?
That is a good question.
So, I mean, you've got all these avenues, you've got all these people working.
Yeah.
I know that you've got people that work within the building, you've got office space, you have to pay for the lights, you've got, and one thing is you're passionate about this.
Oh, just a little bit. I live and breathe it every day.
Well, I wish, if I look back at my life, I wish I would have had somebody so passionate, because being in the state system, you're just passed around, and whoever gets you, gets you. And these parents, they're happy to have a child. They're happy to bring somebody in. And a lot of times it's parents or the parents that take on the child can't have kids. That was kind of my experience. But who pays for all of this stuff? How do you assist these parents? How do you have people going in and helping them? How do you have counselors on hand to help with the children, to help with who pays for all this?
Well, we had to really be careful when we founded the sanctuary. We're actually only about 3 years old. So we had our 3-year anniversary April 1st.
Congratulations.
Well,
That's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much. And so when we looked at our budget, what we had to do is we had to make sure that our budget and the way that we financially structured the organization, that we could always make decisions based on what is in the best interest of the children and the families.
So you always put the child first?
Always put the child first. Yeah, if you look at our core values, that is our very first core value, is that every decision that we make is based on what is in the best interest of the child, and then secondly, what is in the best interest of the family that is caring for that child. And so with our budget, we had to make sure that only 50% of what we use to operate comes from the state and the reimbursement from the state.
Okay.
And the other 50%, Dash, it comes from the community, comes from business owners, comes from churches, individuals, just anybody who is in the community that is willing to support this work. Because what we do is above and beyond what any other child placement agency does.
How does the state feel about that then? They've had their protocol for years on how they do things. You step in almost like a filter. And I mean, you're kind of like a filter where you're like, whoa. Okay, slow your roll, state, because these kids are not in good situations.
Right.
And I notice that a lot of these kids are just given to people, and they're collecting a check or whatever else, and
it can happen,
and there's really no benefit to the child. They age out, they go on, and whatever happens. Oh,
they become homeless, they become sex trafficked, they become the prison population and the addicted population.
So
that's what happens to them.
You're like the stopgap. Oh man, how do I say this? I don't want to anger anybody when they see this episode, but how does the state kind of feel? Because what you do kind of kind of puts a little bit of egg on their face a little bit because they're not doing it really 100% in the best interest of the child. So how do they feel about what you do? Do you get friction?
No, I mean, sometimes it depends, right?
Okay.
So I really believe, Dash, that the state is doing the best that they know how to do and the best that they can, okay? It's a large organization. It's a big ship. And so to try to turn that ship in one direction or another, you've got 365 pages of what is called minimum standards, which are rules and regulations that they have to follow.
But is that all they follow, though? And Amanda, how do you, okay, so here's, I guess this.
I know.
So how, you say the state's doing a great job, or doing, you're not a great job.
I didn't say they're doing a great job.
You said they're doing what they can.
They can, okay. Yes.
So why can't they have core values like you have to run it that way? Why don't they make some changes in knowing that that part's broken across the country? Across the country, it's broken. Why? I mean, they give some of these kids back to their parents, and it's not a good situation. Why don't they accept what you do and say, hey, teach us or show us how to do it right?
Well, we're trying that, actually. Like I said, I believe that they are doing the absolute best that they can and that they know how to do it this time.
Well, it sounds like what you're telling me is they have a curriculum to follow and they check the boxes.
And they do. And what our goal is our vision is to actually become the model child placement agency, first in the state of Texas, and then hopefully throughout the country, that we're looked at as the standard of care for foster care, and that there's no less care that is given to any child in any agency that is less than what we do.
So how many children have you taken into foster care in 3 years?
240 children, over 240 children we've been able to serve.
How many children, and I know you'll have the analytics on this because you do the research, how many children are in the state foster that they've placed in homes through the state?
There are tons, more than you would ever realize.
Because I know that coming up in foster care, I'm not really the most wanted child. 9 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, 5 years old.
Right.
Infants. They want an infant.
Yes,
they want to call it their own.
Right.
What are, and I'm sure that you deal on every level, infants.
Yeah, we do infants all the way. Actually, you can do what's called extended care for a foster child as well. And so we actually take infants all the way up to the age of 21.
Can these parents that you put through this boot camp to become foster parents, and that's essentially what I would call it. It's like a serious boot camp.
Honestly,
because you kind of hit them right between the eyes. We hit them
right between the eyes,
which I love, because if I had somebody do that for me, even though my life has turned out well and I do what I do today, and I'm able to create awareness for these tough topics. Yeah, I guess that what I'm really trying to grasp this whole entire thing is, can these parents walk away, raise this child for 6 months, and can they just walk away from it and give you the kid back?
No, I mean, honestly, they can, but we put a lot of safety measures in place. So one of the things that we do is every foster parent that comes through our door, they have to sign what is our agency policy, which is a commitment to a child. We put on there, hey, listen, this is kind of like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Right? Because typically when you get a kiddo, what you know is their age, their race, and their gender and why they were moved from their biological home, but that's it. And so we're calling parents and asking them to make a decision based on tiny amounts of information. But we tell them that doesn't matter. Once you commit to a child, we expect you to stay with that child and commit to that child. All of our foster parents, they have to sign a document stating that upon their second discharge of a child, and what a discharge is, Dash, is it means that the parent says, I can't do this anymore, and they send in written notice that says, get this child out of my home in 30 days.
Oh, no. Oof.
And so if everybody can make a mistake once, and what I mean by that is everybody, they feel like they can handle more than they actually can. It's just part of it, right? You don't know how much you can handle until you are in that situation and you're like, I can't do this anymore.
Now you're in a situation where you've adopted children.
I have. I've
adopted
six.
You have a blended family. Mm-hmm. How do the biological children that you have, you bring in, whether whatever age they are, how accepting are they? How well has it worked for you? Has that been a struggle with other families when they bring another child in that comes from an ethnic background? They're African American, they're whatever, or they've got problems, they've got issues. They've not been in the greatest situation where your children or their children that they've had have kind of been shielded from all that stuff. How has that worked for those families?
I mean, you know, one of the things that you'll hear often in the foster care community is follow your birth order, follow the birth order. I'm not a proponent of that, to be honest.
Explain
because,
that to me.
Okay, so what birth order means is that if you had, let's say you had a biological child that was 5, that you wouldn't bring in any children into your home that were over the age of 5.
Okay.
You would only bring in children that were under the age of 5.
Interesting.
It's
What's
interesting.
the concept behind that?
I think the concept behind that is that, you know, that it would be easier on your biological child if they remained in their birth order in the family, their traditional birth order. That has not been our case. What we did is when our biological son, he was 2, and then I have a bonus child who was 5 at the time, we actually brought in a sibling set of 3. He's my bonus child. Love him to death. But we brought in a sibling set of 3 that were 5, 9, and 11.
Oh, wow.
So definitely not in the birth order.
Not even close.
Not even close in the birth order. And then as we continue to adopt, we've been all over the place, you know, with regards to birth order.
Can families, you know, depending on the right family, does the race of the child ever become an issue with a family? I mean, do you strategically want to put, you know, an African American child with an African American family, or do you just fit the family that fits the child?
I mean, honestly, it is always better if you can stay within the same ethnic race of the child. It is always better. Anything that we can do to reduce trauma on that kiddo, and that we can, you know, do anything that we can to make it the most family-like setting and experience that they have is what we try to do. But if we are not able to find a match as far as with ethnicity, then I mean we absolutely will cross, you know, all of those ethnic barriers to place the child just wherever they belong.
So now we're gonna get kind of heavy into this. So I want to hear, and it's gonna be tough for both of us. So I want to hear a story of a child. Of course, we're not going to mention names, but a success story, how it turned out, what has happened. But I want to hear, you know, where the child came from, what had happened, and the success that came after.
Well, I'm just going to share of a story in my own home.
Okay.
So those first 3 kids that I told you about, they were 5, 9, and 11. My 11-year-old daughter, when we got her, she was extremely challenging. I mean, she stood in the kitchen at one point and told me she was going to stab me.
Oh goodness, yeah.
She had called me more names than I could count. I mean, I'm just going to be candid. I've been called a bitch more times than you could ever imagine.
Okay. But you withstood it.
Well, I withstood it, but it's only by the grace of God. It put pressure on my marriage. My husband and I almost got divorced.
Oh wow.
Over it because of the pressure and everything that was there.
So you really had to go to the cross.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was bad. I, you know, went into depression myself because I wasn't going to give up on this kid no matter what. It was very, very challenging and very hard. Very hard, because she was just so angry. It's the only emotion that she would allow herself to feel was anger.
Right.
And I was the main recipient of it during that time frame. And
that's got to be so tough.
It was awful. It was awful. And so, you know, for 3 years, she wouldn't let us touch her heart.
Could she not feel how much you cared about her? I mean,
She didn't trust it.
3 years?
She didn't trust it.
Wow.
She didn't trust it. She wouldn't let herself. She wouldn't let, because she knew that the minute that she opened her heart truly up to us was the minute that she could get hurt.
But where did she come from? What shielded her? What made her heart so just guarded?
Yeah. Well, she, so growing up, you know, in her biological home, they were kept in a room by themselves most of the time. It was her and her 2 brothers. She never had clean clothes to wear. They had a bucket in their closet to use the restroom in.
Oh man, yeah.
She was the one that was responsible for getting her siblings up and ready for school. She had to go out and sneak food. Her mom and mom's boyfriend would typically sleep in the living room, and she would have to go sneak food. And she has a story of remembering her brother, because she was the oldest of a sibling set of 3, and her brother that was just underneath her. One time she asked him, she said, "Can you just go do it this time?" And he looked at her and he said, "Hannah, I can't, I'm too scared."
Wow.
And so she had to go sneak food so that they didn't starve.
That's unreal.
And so, you know.
So 3 years.
3 years.
Took you 3 years.
To get to her heart.
What was the breaking point? When did it happen?
It really happened whenever I read a book. It's called The Connected Child. And if you are a foster parent or you're an adoptive parent or anything like that, pick up that book and read it. It will change your life, because I didn't know from the beginning, like the way that my child's body was wired and their brain was wired and everything from trauma. So I didn't know how to parent a child like that. Because then what I was doing is I was parenting her just like I would have parented any other child, right? What you do is you know, they do a behavior, they do something, you give them a consequence. That's what you do. And then you believe that that consequence is going to change their behavior, and they're going to see, oh, I don't want that consequence, so I'm going to change my behavior. You cannot do that with these kiddos. It doesn't work, because you give them a consequence, and what it does is it reacts the fear response in their body, that survival response that they've always been through, and all you're going to get met with is more hostility. You're going to get met. They're going to dig their heels in, and they're not going to give in, because at the end of the day, Dash, when you really think about it, what can you do to them? What kind of consequence can you give them that is worse than what they've already experienced?
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
You can't.
I think they'd almost rather you whip them than have to go through what they went through.
I mean, we told my daughter one time, we were like, okay, you did this, and so you've got bed at 7 o'clock. You've got to go to bed at 7 o'clock. She was like, oh, is that the best you've got for me?
Yeah.
Why don't you make it 2 nights? How about 3? You want to make it a month? Please. Please. And so that's what we were met with, was this egging on of almost, oh, you think you can control me?
But how'd you get to
Try.
it? Where did it break?
Yes. And so the Connected Child.
Yes.
So when I read the Connected Child book and I realized, what was going on in her body, I was like, where was this 3 years ago? And so what she and I can both pinpoint is one time she got very, very angry, and she stormed out of the house, and she was like, I'm not going to sleep here. This isn't my house. This is your house. And so she stormed out of the house, slammed the door, and laid down on the concrete outside. Now, typically what I would have done is I would have gone out and been like, get yourself back in this house, get into bed, it's time to go to sleep, yada, 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 right? But this time, after reading that book, I went into her, didn't say a word. I went into her room, I got her pillow, and I got her blanket, and I took it outside and I just gave it to her.
Oh, wow.
And then I went inside, and I knew she loved hot chocolate. It's one of her favorite things. And I made her a cup of hot chocolate, and I took it out and I just put it beside her. And then I left. And she and I can both pinpoint that when we started to change our parenting strategy, that's where it was, because she was like, it made her stop and be like, what is this? Oh my gosh, do these people really care about me? Oh my gosh, why am I treating them like this?
So she came to the realization.
Yes. And so that's exactly what happened, is she decided that, she didn't want to fight anymore, because it was too tiring.
She knew now she was in a win situation.
She was, yeah. She was. But it took her a while for her body and her brain to be able to settle down to also realize that we cared about
when
her.
I came a year ago here, was that the video that I saw that you
Yes, it was.
It's amazing. It really, really is. And this whole thing with the sanctuary is amazing. But now we're going to get something.
Well, let me tell you where she's at now. I got to finish the story. I got to finish the story.
My fault, guys.
So anyway, so now, after that, then she realized that that we loved her. And so she really started working really hard in therapy and getting healed and all of those kind of things. And now she actually works at the sanctuary here as a case manager at the age of 23. Went to college, graduated, got her psychology degree, and it's really cool, because now she can go into the homes and she can tell the foster parents, hey, it's not you. It's not you the reason why this child is acting that way, because I remember as being a foster mom that you question when that child is acting that way. I must be doing something wrong. What am I not doing right? And you beat yourself up.
And I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And so she can do that. And then she can also tell the kids too, hey, it does get better and it will be okay.
Right.
And she can help them walk through what they're experiencing.
Yeah, her story alone,
Yeah.
it will be so reflective to anybody that she can put it in front of.
Right.
And I think it would be, if she's a real good at speaking, probably getting into schools or going to organizations that somebody needs to speak to these kids and let them know, guess what? All hope isn't lost.
It is not lost.
And I thought it was. I thought it was. And, when I reunited with my parents in 1983, it wasn't the greatest situation, but the foster care was terrible. And, to reunite with your parents and think there's now here's some new hope, and then to lose them at such a young age, kind of like back to back almost. But I'm able to bring my story forward for people. What I want to know now is I want to know of a situation where it didn't end great. It didn't end great for the parents. It didn't end great, for the child. It's not a successful story. But you put your all into it to try to help it to get that way, and it didn't work out. So let's Let's hit hard on this one.
Oh gosh. So we had a couple of foster parents, and they had very challenging children in their home, and we supported them all the way through. And we did lots of our crisis intervention, which I didn't talk about before, that we only license homes that are in a 30-minute radius from our home office.
Okay.
So that when that child, when they start to have an issue, we can get to them. And we do in-person crisis support. So we actually go out to the home. We have a clinician that goes out to the home. And so they had the in-home support. They had counseling services for their biological children. I mean, we were just supporting them fully. And they were doing an amazing job with these kids. And then one day, the mom walks in to see her biological 4-year-old being sexually assaulted by the 9-year-old foster child that was in the home.
Oh, wow. Oof.
And so, because of everything, we had to immediately, remove the foster children from the home. But you can imagine these parents. I mean, they'd had these kiddos in their home for over a year. They loved these children, loved these foster children, had planned on adopting.
How'd they not know? How do you
don't even get me started about that.
No, I want to get you started, because I mean, this is what people have to hear.
Yeah.
We don't a lot of times we don't get the backstory. I'm going to give you a quick story. There was a young man in Hitchcock.
Yeah.
It's been all over the news. Special needs child, and the stepdad. Basically, they roped this special needs. I'm not sure if he was Down syndrome, autism, whatever, but roped him down, never let him leave the room. Even tried to do, the dad even tried, he had something going on with his ear. The dad cut up part of his ear and then, used fishing wire to, repair it. This young man went from 240, 250 pound young man that when they rescued him in the home, he weighed 71 pounds. And then they got him to the hospital. Of course, he passed away. Severe neglect, severe abuse. We talk about sexual abuse. How do they not know? You talk about a year and a half. How do you not know?
Are you talking about, okay, so help me to understand. Are you talking about foster parents that are abusing children? How do they not know?
Either one. How do they not know when their own children are abusing the foster? I mean, vice versa.
Right.
How do they not know?
You don't know. For instance, this particular foster child that was in there, he didn't have a sexual abuse history. Didn't have a sexual abuse history at all. And so,
but he would have had to have learned that somewhere at such a young age.
He would have had to have learned it somewhere, but it hasn't come out yet where he learned it.
Well, okay.
And please understand that sexual abuse is the last thing that people talk about, because it is so internal. There is so much shame that goes along with it, with sexual abuse, that they don't talk about it. And so you can have that they were removed from their home because of physical abuse or whatever, and have those kids for years, Dash, before they will allow those memories to come up. I mean, I'm currently dealing with a situation right now in my own personal home. Sorry.
That's okay.
Because it's very, very raw.
Sure.
Of a kiddo we've had since he was 7.
How old is he now?
He just turned 13 this last Friday.
Okay.
That this is coming out.
Wow.
We didn't know.
6 years.
Yes, we didn't know.
6 years.
We had no idea that this was going on with him. No idea. But you know what? We love him.
Sure you do.
And you know what? We're going to stick with him through it. And we're going to help him. Because when you sign up to do this, that's what you sign up to do, is to walk alongside these kids no matter what.
Right. And
do you
you've
hear
done
me?
that.
No matter what. It's what you sign up for.
Right. You've done that. You're committed. And your team is committed.
My team is committed. You better believe that they are. Because, because they know that this is the only shot that these kids have.
But you've set the standard. You've set the standard.
I've tried. I'm definitely not perfect.
No,
sure.
none of us are.
Yeah.
And when we strive for perfection, we're really just, that's going to, we want to always strive for excellence and do the best that we can. We're never going to be perfect, because there's only one person that's perfect.
Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
And that's, that's the guy God upstairs that runs everything for us. You're passionate, you have drive. I've known you for a year. You give your all. It's I can tell. I can look at you. I can tell you when you're dealing with emotion. It shows on your face. You look great in red.
Oh,
it's all good.
You.
So I love red, of course. Guys, this is a situation where they're changing the game on foster children. I think the last thing that I want to talk about is you talked about adoption.
Yes.
And I think that's important because
Yes.
I know if I was a foster parent and I came to love a child,
Yeah.
knowing that what their prior background was, there's probably a good probability that I want this child to be part of my life forever.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the adoption
Sure.
side of it and how successful it's been and where you're going
Sure.
with it. And
So we currently have 43 adoptions, I believe, as of last Friday.
Oh, wow.
In the 3 years, we've seen 43 kids adopted
That's actually a
through
lot.
the agency. It's actually, it's a significant amount for sure.
That's fantastic.
So
Mainly, are you been able to get a lot of older children adopted?
we do the gamut of kids. In fact, on Friday, I believe she's 16, if I remember right. That we just had a 16-year-old that was adopted. So
Wow. Now, what was her? So she was adopted at 16. Where'd she come from?
She came from the state, from CPS.
Okay.
Severe sexual abuse that this kiddo went through.
That always drives me crazy.
Yeah, and she has some mental impairments as well. And so, but this family just really loved on her, took her under their wings, and adopted her. And it's a beautiful adoption story.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you go home every night, 5 days a week. You give your all. You give it on the weekends. What is your ultimate goal for the sanctuary going forward? When you sat with your team and said, you know what, we can take it next level. What's the goal of the sanctuary going forward?
Well, the goal of the sanctuary is to, like I said, to look at every single area where the state needs help and then come in and be that safety net. So currently what we do is, we provide help with foster care because we want to stop those moves of kiddos. Because, like I said, what we've seen is that the trauma really happens not from the abuse that they came from, but once they enter foster care, the number of moves that they have, we can correlate their behavior with the number of moves that they've had. So to stabilize those kids in placement, which is why we have those parents sign that document that says upon their second discharge of a child, we will ask them to transfer agencies, because they no longer share our mission and values. We don't play around with that. We don't play around with moving kids from home to home to home. We just don't. And so we're in that foster care space. Then this year we actually launched our post-adoption program, because what we've seen in my own personal life and with other people that I've talked to is, that trauma doesn't stop with a name change. And
Correct.
so they still need the same support. So we give them the option of the counseling services for everyone in the home, the in-home support, and that crisis intervention piece as well, so that they can, receive that support. So that's our post-adoption. And then what we're hoping to launch in the next couple of years is our bio-family mentorship program. Because one of the things that you asked me is, you said, well, is sometimes that the best case? Yes, it is. But these parents can't do it. These bio-family parents can't do it without support.
Right.
Because that's the reason why the kids likely came into care to begin with. And so what we're going to do is we're going to provide that same support for them. So when we get their kiddos, after the first 3 months, we're going to vet those parents to see if this is a good option for those children to return home. And if it is, then those bio parents are going to get therapy and counseling services here. They're also going to get training about how to handle their kids' behaviors when they get home. They're going to get wrapped around by the church and help to get them driver's license and cars and a stable job and stable housing, all of those kind of things, so that when those children return back to their care, they have that support system in place that will follow them and be able to help them.
That's awesome.
And then, Dash, we're looking at just moving around the city. So we currently have an office here in Clear Lake. We also have an office in Sugar Land. So we've opened our second office in Sugar Land.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. And so we just plan on continuing to move around Houston at that 30-minute radius to make sure that, very strategically, to make sure that we have all areas covered and that we can support all the kids that are in Houston.
Awesome. Guys, this is just amazing what the Sanctuary Foster Care Services is doing. And just know this, at the end of the day, just help the kids. Just help the kids. That's really what we have to do, is we just got to put all of the care, all of the effort into helping these children be productive, have loving homes, make them productive in society. They want to be part of that, but they've got so much hurt. They've got so much turmoil and inner stuff that they're dealing with. I lived it. I know it, okay? And what this Sanctuary Foster Care Services is doing is changing the game for the guy that lived it too. They really, really are. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
For having us. You are always a breath of fresh air. You're an absolute angel. God has a special place for you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, fabulous. So we are currently in our staff room, our training room. So whenever we have training for foster parents, it happens here. Our orientation happens here. This is where our staff come as well. There's some things that I'd really like to point out in this room. One of the things is I'd like to point out this poster right here. So it says 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one last traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And really, this is who we are as the sanctuary. So we looked at the system, we saw what child placement agencies were out there and what they were doing, and we decided to take that road less traveled, because what we knew is that we were hearing back from parents all the time that 1, they weren't receiving the support that they needed, and 2, we were hearing from the foster kiddos that they were being moved constantly, continuously, over and over again. And so we decided to go ahead and do something new, do something different, to come in and figure out where the system was broken and how we could be that safety net to be able to help the families and the kids. And so moving on, we are a faith-based organization. And so here is our faith foundation. Because we believe, the founders of the organization believe, that the reason why we do this work is because Christ did it for us. And so we want to come in and we want to pay that forward. But with that, we also don't discriminate, because we believe that showing the love of Christ is the most important thing. And so we don't discriminate. We make sure that we meet people where they are. And here is our mission statement. So we exist to achieve permanent sanctuary and healing homes for children and families from hard places. Notice it says permanent. Our whole goal is to make sure that the kids that are here, that they have permanency, whether that is that they're reunified, whether that is that they go with a relative, whether that means that they're adopted. We are looking for a permanent solution, and to make sure that those kiddos get healed. And these are our core values that we also really, really treasure. So the first one is that we have a fierce commitment to children first, not to a budget first, not to outside agencies first, anything but those children and the family second. And the next is that we are faith-based, but we have integrity with the highest ethical standards. And then we're all about embracing change. If it can be done better, then we want to do it better. And so as we see issues or we see things with our methodology and with our processes and our procedures, we are not set and stuck to anything. We will always change that so we get the best outcome for families and kids. And then we also believe in effective and respectful communication, giving voice to all. And that means everyone. That means our kiddos. We currently have 3 former foster youth that work on staff, and we're getting ready to add another one, our 4th former foster child that works on staff, because we could not say that we are doing what is in the best interest of foster children if we didn't have their voice. And so it was really important to us that we have former foster youth on staff, that we have former foster parents on staff, adoptive parents on staff, that we really have that round perspective of what is going on. And then finally, we have excellence in quality of service. So if we're not doing something excellent, we want to know about it so that we can fix it, or we can change, or we can make things better. So I wanted to introduce you to this room. This is our training room. This is where all the magic happens when a family first calls in and says, hey, I'm interested in being a foster parent. And so here is where we have our people that bring them in. You can see that our boards over here, they're full of families that want to be foster parents. So we don't have a lack of people wanting to come in and be foster parents. We just get them through the process, and we get kiddos into their home. But one thing that you do need to know is that 30 to 60% of foster parents drop out every single year. And the reason why they drop out is because they don't receive the support that they need. 76% of placement disruptions happen because foster parents say, this is too hard. I didn't know what I was getting into, and I can't do this. But we believe that if they had the support that they needed, that they would remain in the game and continue to be foster parents, and that those kids wouldn't have to change homes and move. So this room is our case manager hub. So this is where our frontline workers who go out to the home every single month and talk to the families and find out what they need and how they can be helped. This is where they are. As you can see, it's a very open concept room, because what we do is we believe that we are better together and that we can learn together. And so all of these case managers that are in here, they talk on a regular basis. They talk about their cases. They talk about their kids that are in care. They talk about their foster parents, and they get together to figure out what is the best way to serve them, to meet their needs, and to help these kiddos be successful in life. I really want to point out this right here, because this is what we believe. So this says stay connected. And what we have learned through a trust-based relational intervention, which is also, you'll hear the acronym TBRI, is that connected and staying connected is the most important piece, because people don't care. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so we take that motto to heart here, not only with our foster kiddos, making sure that our foster families really take time to stay connected with that kiddo and make connections, but we do that with our staff too. So our case managers that I just talked to you about the case manager hub, we make sure that we keep their caseloads low, so that when a foster parent is struggling and they call those case managers, that when the case manager looks at the phone, their first reaction is, how can I help? Not, oh my gosh, they're calling me again. So we do that on purpose. And then this also goes with my staff. So we're really intentional here to use TBRI with our staff, because all of us have a story. Many of us have trauma, and what we do every single day is impacted by that trauma. And so when I see issues with my staff, the first thing that I have to ask myself is, what is behind that behavior? Why are they acting that way? And really get in deep, and you'll find that most of my staff here are in therapy, because we believe that therapy is very important, and we believe that everybody has the opportunity and the chance to be able to grow. So our big thing here is when staff comes in, we want them to leave us as different people and better people than when they came. So I want to tell you guys about our adoption wall. So as you can see over here, we have many, many families that are on our adoption wall that have adopted, because we believe that foster care is important, but adoption is equally as important, and reunification is equally as important. So over the lifetime of the organization, we have been able to see 45 adoptions currently that have occurred with the sanctuary. So this room right here is where the magic happens. This really tells the story of how we got started and how we continue to keep going. So right here on the bottom, you see that we have all these cobblestones. So in the very first year, we had to raise $150,000 in order to be able to open our doors and start this amazing ministry that the sanctuary has grown into. And then as we've grown, all of these leaves are of the children that we have served over the last 3 years. So you can see we've got quite a few here, but we know that in the future there'll be even more. So this is how we keep going, because as you remember from the video, only 50% of our budget is covered by what we get reimbursed from the state for the care that we give. And the other 50% has to be supported by the community and members who really believe that this is a great cause. And so on this small wall over here are all of our grants that we've received over the years that have helped us to be able to do the work that we do. And then on this wall over here are our transformational and sustaining donors. So all of the businesses and individuals on this wall have given at least $6,000 towards the sanctuary. And we could not do the work we do if we didn't have the support of the community the way that they are. So we really, really want to highlight these folks and say thank you for keeping our doors open. This sign right here embodies exactly who we are as the sanctuary. It is our goal to make sure that the kiddos are healed the best way, that we have the ability to help them. And these are some of the families that have fostered and adopted around us. This room right here really stands as the separation in the agency of what we are doing that is completely new and different in foster care. So this room is our waiting room. This is where kiddos come to wait whenever they are getting ready to go into their therapy. And we're going to show you on the other side, because everything that we're doing on the other side is not done in any other child placement agency across the nation that we are aware of. So over on this side of the office, we're currently in one of our mini therapy rooms. We currently have 6 therapy rooms that we use over on this side. And this is where talk therapy occurs. So this is for kiddos that are old enough to use their words to be able to work through their trauma. It's also where we have foster parents that come in for individual therapy and couples therapy as well. And then we also see biological children or previously adopted children that are in the home that are struggling to adjust. So this is our play therapy rooms. We actually have 2 of them on this side. This is where kiddos go whenever they are younger and they struggle to have words to use to be able to work through their trauma. One of the best examples that I can tell you about a child that has been in this room and worked through their issues is a little 5-year-old boy that we have. He actually witnessed his 2-month-old baby brother being murdered horrifically. So the caregiver that was watching the 2-month-old baby, she actually removed all of her clothing. She had the baby suck her breasts, then she bit off his penis, and then she suffocated him between her thighs. So you can imagine a 5-year-old watching that. and being witness to that. And so every time that he would come into this play therapy room, he would come in and he would grab a doll, baby doll. He would sit in that rocking chair right there. And he would grab the doctor kit that we have right here. And he would take it and he would doctor that baby. Because that 5-year-old, for some reason, felt like he should have done something, and that in some way, his baby brother dying was his fault. So we've talked about the therapy services that we provide to all of our kiddos and parents and biological family members in the home. But now I want to talk about the other portions that we do. So we do in-home support, which what that means is that when you have a family that is struggling with a kiddo in their home, that we actually have clinicians that go into the home and help that family know how to connect with the child, help them to deal with the behaviors, and are right there to be able to help the family in whatever way that they need. The other thing that we do is we do 24/7 in-person crisis intervention. It is unheard of in the industry. If they have a child that is having a massive tantrum or a meltdown, it doesn't matter if it's on the side of the road, if it's at McDonald's, if it's at a skating rink, or in their home, we have a clinician that will respond to the home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help de-escalate that child and the parents in the home. The other thing that we do is we provide frequent breaks for the parents, because you can imagine dealing with the behaviors all the time, they get tired. And so we license families that all they do is they provide what is called respite care, which are breaks for the parents so that they can just breathe and have a minute before they go back into the battle again. So this room is the community relations room. So we have employees in this room that are facing out towards the community and inwardly. So one of our other supports that we do is that we provide every single month an activity for the foster kiddos and the foster families, because fostering can feel very alone and you can feel very isolated. And so this is a time where the families can get together and the foster parents can know they're not alone. There's other families that are doing it like they are, and the foster kiddos can look around and be like, there are other kids that are just like me that are in the same situation. And so the sign that I'm holding right here is one of our programs that we have, and it is a Sell a Home, Give a Home program. And this is where we partner with real estate agents throughout the community, that when they have a listing, they put this beside their listing so that the community knows that if you use this particular real estate agent, that they are going to donate a portion back of what they receive for the sale of the home to the sanctuary to help provide homes for these kiddos. And then in return, once they give us the name of the person that either bought or sold the home, we send a card out to them thanking them so much for choosing that real estate agent and for caring about their community. Finally, here at the sanctuary, what I want to talk about is how we partner with other organizations. So we believe that God has called us into the foster care space and being able to support families, but we also believe that God has called other organizations into their particular space, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. All we need to do is partner with them for all of us to be able to serve a vulnerable population. And so one of those organizations is Carrying Hope. And what they do is they provide backpacks for kiddos that are placed in foster homes that come with nothing. Many of our kiddos that come, they can get placed late at night, and some of them don't even have shoes when they're placed. And so Carrying Hope, they give us backpacks that help the foster parents for that first night and help the kiddo that first night to have things that they can use: a change of clothes, a blanket, a stuffed animal, pajamas, just everything that they would need for the first night of placement. And then we also partner with several other organizations like Foster Closets and Galveston Urban Ministries and just anybody. And then we share different materials with them as well. So Carrying Hope, if we have people that give backpacks to us, we often give them to them. And other organizations that we get supplies in that we can share. And so here at the sanctuary, we really, really believe that when we work together and we share resources, that we can impact the community in profound ways.
Hey guys, thanks again for watching another episode of the Dash Chronicles. It's your boy, Dash Gordon. Also, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe by hitting that bell icon so that you get future notifications when we drop some awesome, cool stuff. Again, thanks so much for watching. Peace out.